All right, y'all. How's it going? My name's Jared. I'm an audio engineer here in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to kind of start a new series. I've got a couple of mixes I'm prepping right now. And so I just thought it would be a good time to talk about what that kind of looks like and maybe show the process into that. This is a song that I did with an artist in Atlanta. His name is Jay Rydel. And we co-wrote this and co-produced it. And I got to mix it now. So it's a little different when it's a track that I'm producing and mixing, because obviously sometimes the process I just kind of it just never ends. But I do like to put my mix in a new session, and with blank slate, all faders at 0, so that I can just start there and not be caught up in some of the things I was doing production wise. And a big concept when I'm like producing is I like to commit. I like to make decisions and live with them and paint myself in a corner. I don't want to like leave all my plugins and everything else like that, because I'll constantly be going back and I'll constantly be adjusting if there's something to adjust, and if I'm fighting with it and everything else like that. I want to pick a sound, and if I like the sound in that moment, I want to commit to it and move on. Now, I always have those things. If I mess something up and I didn't hear it in a day, I do have, like, let's say these synths right here. I have them here. These are hidden, but this is like the original sound. So I can always go back if I need to, but I don't want to be looking at it. I don't want to think about it. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to have to move backwards. I always want to be moving forward. So I'm committing to sounds and I'm moving on. So that's a big part of my workflow. Second thing is organization. Obviously, this is a different DAW. This is Cubase. I sometimes like producing in Cubase just because it's just easier to work with MIDI wise and stuff. And I was having problems with Pro Tools at the time, so this song was done in Cubase. Now, my color scheme is the same. It's the same because I want to be able to find things. I want to move quick. And as I produce, I want to act like there's no mixing or mastering that's going to happen. I want the sounds to be good. I want the balances to be good. I'm not ever thinking like, I'll fix that in the mix. I'm going to fix it now. I just want to I want to write like there's no producing happening. I want to produce like there's no mixing happening. And I want to mix like there's no mastering happening. I just want it to be the best it can be at every level. So here's just a little bit of the song, pre-chorus going into the chorus here.
Feelings must be wrong. But I know, I'm on my
own. Sometimes it likes to trip. Jay's got such a great voice, such a cool writing style too. Super fun to work on. It's been a minute since I've even heard this, so it's great. Now, you'll notice here I have this track that says rough. I always like keeping like versions. I'll print versions, especially when we're tossing things back and forth with an artist or something. I always like at the end of the day of whatever I've worked on, I will print like a rough print of like where it's standing right now. This way they can listen to it and take notes on anything they want changed or whatever. And so I always have that living in my session, because sometimes maybe it was cooler the day before, and I can, every time I open the session, I'm save asing a different number so that I can always go backwards to where this rough was created. I can always find it. So let's take a listen to like where it was. That was like after our original writing idea, and so quite a bit different than where it's at now. So let's take a look at some of these tracks. If you notice here, this says R, that means rendered. So I'm guessing there's no plugins on this. Yeah, I just committed those plugins. Like when I'm recording, I get the sound that I want, I commit, and I move on. And the same thing with the editing. All the editing is committed here. It's just cleaner. Let's see what these waveforms look like. And I want all of this to be, when I'm getting ready to print and send this to mixing, I want all of this to be one track. So I'm just going to press Shift Option 3, just like Pro Tools, and replace. Now all of these are the same length, right? No cuts, no nothing. These are like my effects, like my throws and stuff. So I just grab them from the main vocal and I throw them down into my delays and stuff. So I need to make those one track that is the same length as the rest of the tracks. And I will go through and I'll do that to all of my tracks because I just need them all to be the same length. I want them to start at the very front, like count 1, bar 1. I want it to look super clean like that. If I have any sort of volume automation, like it's gonna be printed. I want, when somebody's sending me a mix, I want to drop it into my session and I want it to sound identical to their rough mix. Now, mastering chain aside, there might be some level differences and stuff, but if there's like panning automation, if there's filter sweeps, if there's volume automation or like a distortion on a vocal or anything, like I want all of that printed. It just takes way more time to try to recreate the effect, and there's no way I'm going to get anywhere close to the original just by my ears. You know, I might be able to get close, but everybody will notice the little nuance difference between the rough that they've been listening to for 3 months while they're making this song, and then I send it back trying to recreate what they meticulously did, and it's not going to sound the same. It just isn't. So I need it to sound the same when they send it to me. So I'm very, very specific on how I receive stems. I want everything that you've done baked in. You spent so much time on it. I really want to capture that. So I'm really not trying to start over, and it saves time. You know, I'm trying to spend more time on helping it get to the next level, not spending all this time getting it back to where the rough was sounding. I want to start where the rough was. So you can see that there's like edits here. So that's where I'll go through here and I'll just make sure that it's all one track. Now, sometimes depending on the DAW and stuff, you don't have to do this because it'll do it when I bounce it. But I just like to look at it and know that it's all the editing's done. I want this to be the same length as everything else. So I'm going to cut that off. Make sure that everything is the same length for my own sanity. And this way, when I go and I look at it, I know it's been edited, it's been cleaned up. There's nothing I need to worry about. And a lot of these cuts you see, sometimes it's like arrangement, I'm moving stuff around. Sometimes it's like volume that I'm doing in the clip gain instead of automating it, because it's just faster to clip gain than to automate, and especially if I'm not going into any plugins. And these keys here, same thing. I just need to make them all the same length. So perfect example here. It made it all the same length, but this one didn't start at the beginning. So I want that to be the same length from the beginning. So I'll go here and here. Now it's blank audio here. Like there's nothing that's going to be here. In Logic, sometimes people will send me what their stems look like. If you don't consolidate like this, it'll be like, I don't really have a sound that right here. This sound only happens here and it doesn't happen here. So their audio file will like end here. So then when I drop it into my session, it's like it'll look like this. Now, not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. But again, I just visually, I don't want my eyes to be like, wait, what's going on there? Or why is it like that? And all my tracks are like staggered and everything else like that. I want to open it up and I want it to look like this. Then it's easy for me to navigate. I know that this is playing in the chorus, and it's just easier to navigate for me, and I don't have to question anything. Or maybe it's starting in a weird place, or when I drop it into my session, if all of them are the same length, I know that it's going to play back exactly where it needs to. If they're different lengths and stuff, I'm just like, is it starting in the right place? Maybe the arrangement's wrong, and then I got to spend more time focusing on the rough and listening to the arrangement and placing things myself. And that's just not time that is like valuable to getting the mix to be better than the rough. So things like, let's take a look at these drums. Okay, so we want to show my inserts here. So all this stuff that I'm doing is to shape the sound. You know, I've got some reverb on this sound. Sure. This one, I've got a bunch of little things happening on this fill. I've got some tape saturation. I've got Voice of God bringing in some low end. Let's see. Over here, I've got some reverb going on. I think, Yeah, filters going on. I want all of that printed on there because I don't want to have to recreate it. So the things that I did to like make a sound, I want it to be that way. So I will print it through that. Now, I do have a little bit of a mastering chain going on, or mastering chain. We're going to call it a mix bus, right? And I'm doing that because as I start getting to the end, I kind of want to start making it sound more like a record and get the volume out. So if you notice here, I'm going to play you before and after. I'm making up. I like to produce with a ton of headroom. So I turn my speakers all the way up when I'm producing because I want my drums to hit without any kind of limiting or anything else like that. So if I turn all this off, we're going to lose a lot of level. Let's hear it. And then watch your volume. I'm going to turn it all back on. Right? So there's going to be a pretty big volume discrepancy there. So I don't want to bounce it through my mix bus. Every DAW has a different way of bouncing. So let me back up. First, I'm going to create a folder on my desktop, and I want it to be the name of the song, the key of the song. So this lowercase m is minor, so B minor, and then the BPM of the song, 80. This way, there's no questions on what keys it in. If I have to do any editing, I know that my delays can be set at, BPM 80, or my grid can be, so I can easily fly around my session. That's just going to be super visual here. And then when I go to export, I need it to be the length of my project. So I always have like 2 bars at the front when I'm doing this. So I'm going to include that 2 bars, and everything goes to the bar 65. So I'm just going to select a cycle length here. All right. And then I'm going to go to export. In this case, it's audio mix down. Now I can go multiple. And there's considerations here, right? So I want all of my audio channels selected here. And I'm going to select that I want it to go through all of its groups and all of its sends. So that means anywhere I'm sending it, print that processing. Because on my drums, I am creating a little bit of a... I'm sending it through saturation. All of my drums are coming through here, and it's doing this saturation. That's cool. And I want to print that on it. I don't want to have to recreate it later. That's just going to live on and paint itself on every single track. So I intentionally send it through that because it'll change the way it sounds if it doesn't go through that. I'm not trying to do that. Things like these are buses. So like my harms, I have like 4 of singing the same part of harmony 1. I'm just going to print that. The way I have the panning and the way I have the balance and everything else, I'm going to print that through a single bus so that I don't have 100. Like, look at all these tracks I have. All of these are like my background vocals. It's so many background vocals. I don't want to have to look at all those. So once I've committed all these, I'll put them into, these are my pre-harms. These are my chorus low octaves. This is my chorus harms 2. This is my chorus harm 1. All the organization's been done, and I'm just going to print them that way. Now, if I wasn't the producer on this, I'm just the mixer, and I'm like, hey, I really want to rebalance those, which is a futile mistake. I don't want to do that. The producer has intentionally placed things where he wants them, so I'm just going to keep that. But if it were, I would just call the producer and just be like, hey man, I have an idea on this I want to chase down. Can you send me, all of what you have for chorus harms 1? I'm hearing something that's not tuned right or something. You know what I mean? Because it's a collaboration. I'm trying to help the producer get this to the next level, and be some outside ears. So maybe I do that, but in this case, I don't want to send, what am I at? 200 some tracks. I don't want to look at 200 some tracks. I've already made the decisions, so that's why I bust those down, and then it's just now I have a track, one stereo track for each individual part. So back to our exporting here. Now, in my case, I just made some of these decisions to make the vocal sound cool. I know that because I'm the one mixing it, I'm going to spend a lot more time with the effects, so I don't need them. But in most cases, I'm going to have people print their effects separately. So like my vocal reverb, I don't want the lead vocal with the reverb tail on it. I would love for it to be on a separate bus, and then you can send me the vocal reverb by itself. It's just wet reverb, and then I can have the dry vocal, and I can blend those or EQ those separately the way I want. Now, sometimes it's not always that straightforward, and I have to have a wet vocal. It is what it is. But the preferred way is to have your reverbs on a bus send and your vocals sending to that. And then you can send me a dry vocal and you can send me a wet vocal, or, the affected vocal. And so that's what these would be. I would select all these. Now, I didn't print those because I know that I'm going to redo them. And then all of my instruments and things are getting printed through inserts and everything else like that. Notice I did not select any of these background vocals because all of those, I'm printing those through these. So I'm grabbing these. I don't need them here. And then these are my delays. And yeah, if you have delay throws and everything else like that, include all of that when you're sending it. Because like I said, I want to press play. I want it to sound exactly like the rough. So I'll go through and I'll export that. And that takes time. There's no denying that printing multi-tracks takes time. So I already did that because I don't want to have to sit through the export with y'all. It literally took hours. So now when I open up my I Like It, here's all of my tracks. What I like about including the number is when you see this number here, 11, 13, it organizes them by the number. So now when I drop these in, it'll be the exact arrangement that I have in my session. So I just know that my vocals are going to be at the bottom. Here's all of my vocals. So, and that's how I like it in my session. And I do like folders when I'm working because like you saw, there's like 200 tracks. So I don't want to be having to scroll a million times. If I'm working on the drums, I'm going to open up the drum folder. If I'm working on the bass, I'm going to open up the bass folder. If I'm working on my keys, it's just easy. It's much more organized. I want to be fast because I want to be able to make decisions based on my ears and not get caught up in the technicality of my DAW. So the next thing I'll do, and I'm going to switch over to Pro Tools now, is I'm going to drop all this into my session. I forgot to mention one thing. You always want to print a rough exactly where it's sitting when you send it to a mix engineer. This way they know exactly how you've been listening to it. So we know what we're comparing it to. Because when I'm mixing, I'm constantly flipping between that rough and making sure that I am moving in a positive direction. Sometimes I spend a lot of time on something and it was better on the rough and I have to move backwards. I have to go back to that because I don't want to be taking away. I only want to be adding to the overall experience of the song. So now I'm going to open up Pro Tools and drop all these in and I'll be right back. All right, so we're over in Pro Tools. Now, a couple things here. My tempo I sent to the BPM to be 80 and I just dragged these tracks in. So I just went to my I Like It folder that I made. I just selected all and I drug it into my session. Now, first thing you're going to notice, all of the tracks are the same exact length. How beautiful is that? Second thing, this is my rough here and I can verify that we're close. Check this out. This, what you're hearing right now, is just the multi-tracks. Here's the rough. So what I'm going to do is you're going to see this mute flip between these and see if we can hear a difference. Pretty dang close. Everything's hitting about the same. It's about the same volume. Now, there is some minor differences in the vocal because if you remember, I didn't print the vocal effects, so these are just kind of dry vocals. But that's typically how this session's going to come in. And the best part is notice I don't have any of my color coding. What's up with that? But I know because of the numbering that I could probably just these are my drums. So this is how quickly I can recolor this. I know that here is, those are impacts, effects. Where's my, those are effects, risers. My bass has got to be there. Okay, so these are all my perk colors. This is, what is this called? That's piano loop. Okay, so this is my bass here. And these are my synths. That is not red. Here's my synths all the way to electric. Boom. I'm getting my session just put together pretty dang quick. Here's my guitars. Boom. Now here's my vocals. There's my dubs. So I'm guessing that these are my lead vocals here. And obviously I'll go through and I'll retitle all this and make it exactly what I want it to be. These are my background vocals. This is an effect, and we do that, that color. Boom. And now my session is already starting to look like where I left it. And I got my grid is going to be perfectly lined up, like where we start. Boom. So I can immediately set this as, this is my intro. So I'm going to put a marker here. It's called intro. And everything will start lining up. Now, I don't like looking at my grid lines unless I'm editing or anything else like that. This is just prettier to look at to me. So I'll take that off, but I know that it is on the grid. This is going to be maybe my chorus. Yeah, so this is my chorus here. I know that we are on the grid. So, boom, there's my chorus 1. Really easy to see, and just get to working and listening to the rough. You know, when I get started on this mix, I'll probably listen through the rough a bunch of times just to really start to live in that world that they've already created. Because again, I'm not trying to force it down what I want it to sound like. I'm trying to just magnify what is great about the rough and just really expand on that. So that's kind of what it looks like. And then we'll start talking about how I start parsing this out to a mix on the next one. Thanks for checking it out. See you soon.